Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, how is your day? Hope it always running well. So welcome back with me in CDA session. Today or in this occasion we're gonna learn about how to analyze CDA using four frameworks. There are four frameworks as we learned in the previous week. The first one from Van Dijk, and then the second one from Van Leeuwen, the third one from Verclauw, and the last one from Woodek. So today we try to analyze the text using the four frameworks. Alright, let's get started with the first framework. The first framework is from Van Dijk. As we know that Van Dijk emphasized the power relationship in the social context, and there are three sections of his analysis. The first one, macro level; the second one, superstructure level; and then the last one is micro level. So here the macro level is analyzed by using the description of identity, access patterns such as planning, setting, and then controlling communicative events and social situations. So it's broad. The analysis using this level is really broad. And then the micro level focuses on superstructure analysis such as headlines, main events, and comments on the news or on the text itself. And the micro analysis with level of description and degree completeness instrument. The analysis of representation at the micro level focuses on the microstructure and superstructure. Superstructure analysis uses headlines, main events, and comments of instrument, namely by looking at the discourse based on title, content, and response, while micro-analysis uses level of description and degree of completeness instrument to see how a discourse is reported in detail. So yes, as we know that Van Dijk want to analyze the content or the context in a text as detailed as possible. Alright, here there are there is an example of analysis text using Van Dijk framework. Article titled SBY or Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono must change in 2012. Headlines: SBY must change in 2012. And here there are some discussion. The first one is headlines. Here contain a general description of a discourse. The placement of SBY as the subject of the headlines above, it shows that SBY has become a focus on the news and the headlines that will be described in the main events. The Jakarta Post uses the capital must, which means used to say that something is very important or sometimes involving rules or law. And this means that there is a pressure that strongly requires that SBY change in 2012. This change, when associated with his position as president, can relating to performance, decision, attitudes, or other related matters with his leadership. From the headlines above, it can be assumed that SBY's leadership or performance in the previous year was not good or lacking satisfactory, so he was asked to make change in 2012. Because if his performance is satisfactory, he no longer needs to be required to change, right? Perhaps only asked to improve what was lacking. Indirectly, the headlines made by the Jakarta Post give rise to a negative representation of SBY itself. This will be described in detail more in the main events. Alright, after the headlines, here we have main events in analyzing text using Van Dijk. Main events in the article SBY must change in 2012 contain the sentence and analysis from the CSIS said that Yudhoyono's slow response to every conflict in the country had contributed to the weakening of state authority in the country, a condition that gradually led people to use violence in pursuit of their demands. In his sentence, it shown that SBA's slow response to every conflict is one of the factors that causes the weakening of the state authority. Attitude SBA is not firm and slow in dealing with religious conflict in Indonesia can make people lose confidence in the government and also against SBA as a leader. People can feel insecure due to the many acts of violence committed by certain groups, and what is depicted in the headlines that SBA must do the change in 2012 were continuous with the elaboration of the main events. SBA's intensify and slow attitude in following up on conflict and violence towards religion communities makes some parties feel pessimistic and give negative assessment of SBA. And then here we have comments. Still in the same article, there are comments from sources who contain evaluation and prediction of SBA. Here there is evaluation. In the article, we can see there is part stated that last year was the year of living dangerously for minority groups in Indonesia, as it started with an attack on the Ahmadiyya sect in Cikasik and ended with shooting of residents in Bima, West Nusa Tenggara. This year, 2012, could remain dangerous for minorities if the government remains reluctant to punish perpetrators and bring them to justice. Vermont said. Yes, and then here there are a discussion related with this situation from the evaluation provided by Vermont Research at NGO CSES. It can be seen that it can be that the government has not been able to provide protection to its citizens, especially minority groups, and SBA as the leader has not succeeded either resolving cases of violence that befell the Ahmadiyya Jamaat. Can be seen from there is still violence and attacks against minority groups. And here in the example data above, it can be seen that there are details that describe the government negatively, namely in the sentence has shown up a lack of state action in its failure to protect citizens from attacks by others. Thus, details show the failure of the state to protect its citizens from attacks or violence that committed by certain groups. And this can be seen from the violence that continues to occur against religious groups. This detail gives rise to a negative representation against the government, which indirectly also leads to SBA, because SBA as a leader cannot act decisively against his officer to protect citizens from violence. Negative representation of the government as an SBA also appeared in the form of negative representation seen from the social situation in society. From the result of this study, there are several conclusions, namely at the level of macro, the form of power of Jakarta Post in representing SBA on issues, harmony of religious communities can seen through the pattern of access, one of which is access controlling communicative events. And the power of the Jakarta Post can be seen from the choice of new topics, namely violence and discrimination of religious communities in Indonesia, where SBA looks powerless in this issue. The use of sentences in headlines and elaboration of many events that give rise to a negative representation of SBA. The selection of source, namely the opinion of religious leaders and NGOs, which are more dominant compared to the government official, and the negative assessment of performs SBA and providing details that describe SBA negatively in this news. So yes, in this news, the power of publisher and then the writer or the author and then the what we call it, the interviewee, it can influence the the frame of someone who be the main context or the main discussion on this news. So here we can see the example of SBA representation in this context. Alright, that's for Van Dijk, and then let's move to the next. Alright, let's continue with Van Leeuwen framework. Here the news or the text we use titled Penumpang di atap KRL dirazia is published on Wednesday 11th May to 2011 and published by Rubrik Metropolitan. Here we use Van Leeuwen framework to analyze the news. As we know that Van Leeuwen emphasizes the exclusion and inclusion or the minority group marginalization in the context of a text itself. So here let's analyze using exclusion and inclusion framework from Van Leeuwen. The first one is exclusion. Exclusion, as we know that it is an issue central to discourse analysis. Basically, exclusion is a process how about one group or actor, certain social groups are not involved in the process of talking or discourse. It is the disappearance of the social actor has specific purpose. Use of exclusion strategy found in the text of the news that analyze. There are three process of exclusion by Van Leeuwen. The first one is passivization, the second one nominalization. In this news, it appears that there are several discussed perpetrator even issued in conversation. Other more focus on the news center to the passenger who resisted when the control was carried out. So the reader attention is as if aimed at the passenger action that. So yes, the author in this news want to emphasize the passenger's action or the marginalized actor here. Yes, of course, the passenger, the KRL passenger. The first one, passivization. Exclusion by means of passivization that is found in the text of the news which analyzed. There are four forms passivization depiction. This way used to protect perpetrators, in this case, to protect the official at PTKI as the party considered hegemony the action by KRL passengers. This is the process of passivization and illustrated in the sentence following. Actually, there are four sentences which use this kind of passivization process, but I just put only two. The first one, the line in hundreds of train passengers, electric rails that sit on where it should be, Tuesday and 5. And Tuesday, 10th May. Put in order in Sunday Market Station, so Jakarta. And then the next one, there is at least 4 to 6 people arrested for sitting on the roof, for sitting on the roof, hanging on door, standing between carriage or on a locomotive. Preparatory selection of passive form in the sentence. Alright, so the selection of passivization in the sentence above have blurred who the real picture is preparators who brought order, calf to calf, and sentenced who passengers on the roof of the KRL itself. In both sentences, that was not mentioned at all who actually did control, who did arrest, and who imposed sanction. So yes, there is a blurred section on this news. There are a blurred actor here and emphasize to the passenger as the parties which marginalized by this news. And then the next will be nominalization. How to get rid of perpetrators through the nominalization process only found a shape in the text analyzed. This process is basically done with change word class. For example, some passengers protested the order. For example, some of the passengers protested in the order. They admit that they are desperate sitting on the road because number of existing KRL less. Use of language strategies through nominalization also result in the disappearance of the actor. And then the next will be inclusion. From the discourse of the news text that analyzed, the figure of the passenger who is sitting on the roof of the KRL is represented through three forms, namely differentiation, abstraction, and identification. So for more details will be described. The first one, differentiation. Differentiation basically is a discourse analysis strategy which contrasts the presence of the parties hegemony, in this case official at PT KAI, and subordinate parties, in this case KRL passengers. Through this contrast, one of the parties will be the concern or the cornered party, and there is one other party who will become the dominant party and respected. For example, in this news there is a sentences like this: from the record of PT KAI, an average of 3 people per month they died from being stung electricity while on the roof KRL, and this danger still has not deterred people sitting on the roof of the train, especially the economy KRL, as well as at rush hour in the morning and the afternoon. The above discourse is form of exclusion discourse strategy by way of differentiation, and the paragraph is compared between PT KAI official and KRL passengers, right? And the next will be abstraction. Showing actors directly abstract will create a distinct impression for the reader. The effect that generate will be able to changing the reader paradigm. For example, in this news, there is a line said that Sarwono is among the hundreds of people who trying to fight when you were told to calm down by special security guards for trains. And then the last one will be identification. In identification process, definition is done with add a clause as explanatory. Adding a clause deserves to convince reader with news that will be delivered. For example, here there is a line said that just look inside, already for the show. Want a handle on the door just not enough, so sit down at room, said Sarono, worker from Depok, which on Tuesday morning yesterday going to Tanah Abang, Jakarta Center. So based on the discussion, it can be concluded that in the text of the news entitled "Passengers on the Roof of KRL are rained," or yes, there are this party social interest. Alright. Based on the discussion, it can be concluded that in the text on the title, penumpang di atap KRL dirajia. Alright, so based on the discussion, it can be concluded that in the text of the news entitled "Penumpang di atap KRL dirajia," there are these party social interest. News writer fight for the group from News writers fight for the group from PTKI, while those who marginalize are KRL passengers. It is clear that there is an abuse of power over this. Alright, the next we will discuss about WODEC framework. So here, actually I don't really understand how to analyze WODEC framework, so I just want to show you about the theory of WODEC framework itself, because yes, I'm afraid that will be misunderstanding or misperception if I give the example of analysis which I don't really master on it. So here, in WODEC framework, critique, ideology, and power are the key topic for this course historical approach, or DHA. Yes, the WODEC framework itself. To deal with it, the concept of critique is integration of this course. Immanent critique aimed at discovering inconsistency. Social diagnostic critique focus on demystifying manipulative character in discursive practice, and prospective critique contribute to improvement of communication. And ideology here has been considered as a central notion that represents how relations of power are established, maintained, and legitimized. And ideology in DHA is a worldview composed of related mental representation, conviction, opinions, attitudes, and evaluation shared by members of a specific social group. Power relates to an asymmetric relationship among social actors, assuming different social position or belonging to different social groups. The power relationship obtained between the participant in an interaction and the institutional norms within which that interaction takes place are central to the way in which the discourse is developed and individual utterance interpreted. So yes, in the WODEC framework, the history is really important. The history or the background of the story of the news, the background of the writer, the background of the publisher is really important here. So we must be able to analyze or to know about the background of the publisher, of the author, and ourselves as the interpreter of the news itself. Let's move to Fairclough's model of CDA. Here, Norman Fairclough is known as one of the prominent figures in the discussion of the language, discourse, and society, and he proposed that language is a social condition process, in which process refers to the production of text and the process interpreting the text, and this process itself is related to the practice of the society. So here, in Fairclough's model, there are three levels of analyzing. The first one, micro level or text. It is such as textual or linguistic analysis, and then meso level or discursive practice, such as text production, interpretation, distribution, and consumption. And then the next, macro level or social practice. It is discussed about the power relation, ideologies, and also hegemonies. Alright, let's move to the analysis example. Here I have a news titled "Can English Remain the World's Favorite Language?" Yes, let's have a micro level analysis. So here you can see in the title, the writer chose the word favorite language at the title rather than the second language or their native language. And people use the word favorite when they like something more than other. In this case, people may have two or more languages, but English is their favorite. World's favorite language shows almost all people around this world tend to like English than other language. And then the next, according to the Grammarly blog, you can use quotation mark for emphasis to separate a certain word from the rest of the sentence. The use of quotation at words favorite shows the imperialism itself. So yes, in the title there is a quotation mark in the sentence of words favorite. It shows the imperialism of a language. The evidence of favorite language itself, and English be dominated in the social context. And also the next, the word remain, also shows that this phenomenon isn't a new thing but has been happening for a long time. And this title also used the interrogative sentences, which can make the viewer curious for the answer of this question by reading the news. So in the micro level, we will analyze the text such as linguistic and then the style of the writing itself and the others which relate with the news or the text itself, only the text. And then the next will be meso level. It is more broad than the first one, than the micro level. It is talk about who published it, who the author, and the others. For example, here the publisher is BBC News or British Broadcasting Company. It is the media who origin this news. Only from the languages we can guess that the most of the society there is using English as their first language, and you can include it in inner circle, which means English is used as a native and as the first language among people. So here we can analyze the actor or the publisher of the news itself, and we analyze the background of their personalized or ideology or background history or something like that. And then the next is this news created by Robin Francis Lustig from London, who joined with the BBC in 1989, Radio BBC 4. If we look at the length of time he has worked for the BBC, we can conclude that he is a professional journalist who is very skilled in his field. And then coupled with several awards that he has achieved on one of that is the 1998 Sony Silver Awards for Talk or News Broadcaster of the Year. So in this level you can analyze the publisher, the author, and all of the things related with them, something like that, and you can interpret it based on your prior knowledge and the information that you have in your brain, something like that. And the next is micro level. As we know that micro level is a broader analysis in this context. It is related with social context, religion, ideology, and the broader context in this world, in the aspect of our society. For example, the analysis here, the use of favorite word rather than favorite America. Yes, in this news, the writer used British culture or British style rather than American. And the title shows that the identity where this news was come from British, as I stated before, because BBC News itself is British news channel. And of course, the place where this news come will give an impact to the style of writing. Of course, the culture will influence the writer writing style and some stuff like that. In this part, the author stated that China is the country which learning to speak English, But why China can be like this? As we know that Mandarin is the second most popular language, the user almost 1.1 billion people, stated by Ethnologue 2020. If we take a look to the easiness of using the Mandarin or English, of course, it is easier to learn English. But why the Chinese people tend to learn English, the most tend to learn English than the other country? And in fact, in the mid of 1960 until the late of 1970s, China experienced the expanse of Cultural Revolution. The reason why Mandarin can't be the international language is because there still be geopolitical tension with the US and other Western powers. So yes, in this case, in this news, we can see the power relation in the society, in the world. It's not as natural as we can if we analyze it deep down and deeper and know the broad context in the world. There will be the there will be the party who powerless and powerful, something like that. Alright guys, that's all my explanation about the example of analysis of CDA using 4 frameworks. Hope it can help you to understand, to know about the example of analysis from each framework. I'm so sorry if my explanation is not clear as the others or as the lecturer, because yes, I'm still a student, but I try my best for you. Hope you enjoy it. Bye bye. See you in the discussion forum. Bye.